But anyway, let's move to a much more important issue of tomorrow, the future. 5 minutes on this, John? Thank you. Right, this is an important moment in Scotland and Britain's history. Perhaps it is actually the most important 300 years. Some people will cheer, and others will be extremely nervous. But as I've said, and this is patently obvious anyway, Scotland is deeply divided. And unless we want to deepen these divisions, we need to respect the result. For better or worse, those who want to remain as part of the United Kingdom won by a fairly substantial margin of 10%. Now I heard Alex Salmond say at the end of the speech he gave on the day after the referendum when he announced his intention of standing down as leader of the SNP and as First Minister, that for Scotland the dream of independence will never die. And there are a couple of things I want to say about this, maybe three. The first is that I respect the right of nationalists to dream of independence. It's a compelling and an honourable notion. The second point, though, is this. Our First Minister is wrong. This is not Scotland's dream. It is the dream currently of a minority of Scots, albeit a sizable minority. And one thing I've learned during a lifetime of studying Scottish history is that it's dangerous to talk about the Scots, the Scottish people, without a lot of qualifications. But the third point follows from the second, and it's this, that what the referendum has revealed is that certainly for a sizable but unquantifiable proportion of those Scots who voted no, Alex Salmond's dream is a nightmare. And it's flying in the face of democracy, as some people have, to propose as some people have, that we continue to cause fear in the minds of hundreds of thousands of our fellow Scots by having another referendum soon. Indeed, during the campaign, Alex Salmond and Nicola Sturgeon made it clear that the referendum was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for change. Now, I know that a lifetime can mean a lot of different things to different people, and I did hear Nicola Sturgeon in Dundee saying that for her, the timetable for the next referendum would be generational, and she defined a generation as 15 years, but 15 isn't 3. But not only do those who seek independence have to respect those who voted no, there's a heavy responsibility on the shoulders of the winners too, to listen to the legitimate aspirations of a growing proportion of the Scottish population. So what I'm going to do is, in winding this up, is say this, that I think that the solution, or what we've got to do now, is this. And I'm referring, in what I say, to the ideas, actually, of a hero of the Scottish nationalists in the 20th century, a guy called Andrew Fletcher of Saltoun. Andrew Fletcher of Saltoun was writing at the end of the 17th century, early 18th century, and he had a solution for Scotland, for Britain, even then, which I think is remarkably modern. Now, I can't spell out, because John won't let me, Fletcher's ideas in any great detail, but I will say a couple of things about them. First, what he detested, Fletcher detested above all, was centralisation. That is, in the hands of a monarch or a state. Arbitrary power, unchallenged, he saw as profoundly corrupting. Allied to this in the British context was his concern about London and its tendency to suck capital and labour towards it, thereby damaging other weaker parts of the country. And accordingly, what Fletcher advocated, even at the turn of the 18th century, was strong parliaments in city regions, including, of course, Scotland. However, and this is quite important, critical I think, Fletcher was also a unionist, or what you might call a light touch unionist, in that he believed that without a union of some kind, Scotland and England, given the animosity there has been, or was in his lifetime between the two countries, given that there would be conflict of some sort. So in short, Fletcher was a federalist, as I've become actually, in that without taking this kind of radical step, I think we're going to be diverted for years to come with arguments about how much devolution should a Scottish Parliament have. The piecemeal approach, I think, isn't working, to the extent that I actually disagree with what Nicola Sturgeon said at the weekend. And she argued in the New Left Review, I think it was, that Further devolution would lead to independence, as voters in Scotland would see that the Scots can govern themselves. Now, I think there's no doubt about this already. There's no doubt whatsoever that the Scots can govern themselves. What I think the referendum demonstrated, the result of the referendum demonstrated, is that large numbers of people are not convinced that we need to be entirely separate. They'd be content with a more powerful Scottish Parliament as part of the United Kingdom. And I think that if we were to adopt this model, we'd be in a much more peaceful position, if you like, and we could get on with doing what governments are supposed to do, which is sort things, take us forward, and deal with all of the many social issues and economic problems challenges we face as a nation. And this would also do something else, I think, which would be important, and that is this. It would deal with what I have called elsewhere the grit in the body, the Scottish body politic. And that grit is the Union of 1707. That feeling that somehow or other the Scots were bullied, bribed into this union with England, which they didn't really want. Now, I can argue till the cows come home contesting that kind of view, but nevertheless it's there. And it's at the core of much nationalist feeling, if you read their stuff and listen to them. I think what we're going to do is remove this grit from the Scottish body politic. We've got to create a much stronger Scottish Parliament, and we've got to take responsibility for our own affairs so that no one else is to be blamed when things go wrong, and in order that we have a sense of pride in ourselves when things work out well. So I become a federalist. I think that's the way of solving this, or dealing with this conundrum of a deeply divided nation, and keeping, if you like, both people unhappy and on side, that because I'm concerned that A, this will just go on and on and on as a distraction, and B, that it will lead to deeper divisions within Scottish society, which we saw a bit of during the referendum campaign. Happily didn't come to anything, but I think in the future there's a danger that it might. So, thank you very much for listening.